Welcome to Conscious Eye, living in authentic connection and harmony with self, others, and the world, featuring Ravi and Savitri. Good morning, Ravi.
Good morning, Savitri.
Yes, so what's on your mind?
Well, I can tell you, I got it. Tell you what's on my lap. Got my kitty on my lap.
Nice.
And what's on my mind? A lot, got a lot going on. Um, and we've got the holiday season coming up. Um, so I think gratitude has been on my mind
Yes.
recently a lot.
Hmm.
Um, I know I participated in a gratitude wall at work recently, and I'm not a big fan of engagement activities.
We share that. That's great.
But it was such a nice feeling to, take a moment to write down something I was grateful for and to stick it up on that window. And I kind of realized in that moment, maybe my gratitude work has fallen off, fallen by the wayside a little bit.
Hmm.
Because that tends to be something in practice you focus on. But it is one of those things that does tend to slip away when there's a lot going on and a lot of pressures in life. And we're caught up in the day to day and we're just feeling like we're trying to keep up and keep our head above water. And we maybe have karma or desires for things to be better or different. And that gratitude practice slips away a little bit.
Hmm. Yeah, and we're coming into the holidays, and with that, we have those reminders, rather overt reminders about being thankful and gratitude, which gives us a prompt, and we revisit that. And some of us keep it going longer than others. And it's almost as if we have an opportunity during this time to commit to uh, a thankful, gratitude based resolution for something that we do in our lives or something that has come into our life, maybe unannounced or unrequested. So it may not just be the comma, it might be gratitude for, uh, I don't know, waking up every morning. Something simple uh, that we can bring to our day, bring to our evenings. At the same time, it opens up the dialogue around Thanksgiving and why it was put on the calendar. And we know that with our culture moving in a more compassionate way, a more aware way, some of the alignment among the indigenous peoples of the United States and other countries, but primarily Thanksgiving is a U.S. based holiday, that uh, there isn't exactly an alignment. And so becoming aware and sensitive of that, we can still fall back on the purpose of bringing gratitude into our lives.
Mhm. Something that I've been thinking about since we had our conversation with Sonam is and how that relates to gratitude. I've been thinking about what she said when I have a thought, is it from my original mind or is it from my higher mind? Is it serving just me or is it serving the collective? And
Mhm.
I've been thinking about that in relation to gratitude. Am I grateful for just the things that I have? I was reading that gratitude wall And, saw a lot of posts like, I'm grateful for my family and
Mhm.
my husband and my kids, or this and that. And those are wonderful things. I'm grateful for my fur babies, and I wrote that too. But am I grateful for things that only come into my life and serve me? Or am I grateful for things that serve a higher purpose or the collective? And that's where my thoughts have been turning to
Mhm.
in this
Mhm.
season, is that I've really noticed a shift.
Mhm.
And, I have so much, and I know in not even very so far long ago, being more in alignment with the, oh, I'm so grateful I have this or I have that. But now I find that shifting a little bit, and I'm grateful for the community that I'm connected with
Mhm.
and how that community is socially active, and how we in that community work together to bring peace and compassion and love into the community. So I've just noticed that shift, and I really love how our special guest said that. Am I thinking from my original mind or my higher mind? Am I thinking of serving just myself, or am I thinking of serving others and the collective? Because I think that is really a shift. And that comes into, this Thanksgiving season. Am I really thinking of how this time came to be, this time that we celebrate? And can I be sensitive to and aware of how that impacts others? And can I
Exactly.
have
Yeah.
compassion for that? And can I maybe shift how I perceive this? I know it's sometimes hard. Well, I didn't do that, or that's not what it means to me. But can you really take a minute and stop and think how others might feel in relation to this holiday? Or yeah, this can go into other areas that we experience in life as well.
And this is where we have so much value in uh, really becoming knowledgeable and accepting of so many other ways of living and how there are impacts. And we've talked about this in some of our other podcasts, that our actions, we have no idea how our actions impact others. We may see it in our immediate group or with someone, if you're one on one and you have an action and they respond or react. But it's taken out, it spirals out beyond just who we are. And what you said about watching and being aware of the influences that our perceptions, our perspectives, our belief systems, and I don't talk much about beliefs, but I'll put it in here today, really influence others, whether we're aware of it or not. And that sensitivity to what we think, what we choose to celebrate, what we observe, how we act, our sensitivity to the influences and impacts to others brings us into such a great awakening. And it may just be part of what's going on with us spiritually right now as a collective, is that we're getting those glimpses. And some of us are getting full view, but some of us are getting glimpses of ways that we thought were just fine, very familiar. We're going to go with this and continue to go with it. And then they hear something, learn something, become aware of it in some way, and it opens the mind to a different way of discerning whether they need to really be involved without understanding and having compassion, or not involved and bringing awareness to others about the influence and impact on some of the things we're doing. So right now I think I'm focused on Thanksgiving as our holiday because that's where we are. But I think this goes into a lot of different areas in our lives that we grow up in a channel, a stovepipe with blinders on. We do. That's what happens. And as we start taking the blinders off, or they dissolve or decay for whatever reason, or they're torn off because of some event in our life, uh, it's a karmic awakening. And that karmic awakening then gives us that choice to shift our perspective or change our behaviors and make that known.
And I want to acknowledge the place that resistance has in that process,
Yes.
because even with the best intentions to be open and aware and to learn from others' perspectives and to see from other perspectives, no matter where you are in that journey, resistance comes up.
Mhm.
That's so normal. Resistance to, well, no, that's not how I feel about it. That's not what I think about it. That's not what it really is. So acknowledging that aspect, I think, is to normalize that is so important because it's going to come up. I think not just in the beginning, but along the way. That even as you think, oh yeah, I can see how this might be harmful to some groups. I
Mhm.
can see how this might be perceived as harmful or might actually be harmful wherever you are in that journey. You may have already come to that level of acceptance and hit a moment down the road where that resistance comes up again. And I think those are the moments those are opportunities for us to go, well, what's that about? Where is that coming from? And we may get frustrated with ourselves in the process because, well, why is that coming up again? Well, just dig a little deeper or, just sit in a little more quiet, just allow it to come up, observe it, take a look at it from different angles, and, it might reveal itself in a more meaningful way if we're able to just kind of sit with it for a while.
Yeah. Using our insight to really analyze what it is that's happening internally to our perspectives. And what you were talking about made me think of ancestral karma because we do come into an environment as a child when we're born, and all that we know for the first phase of our life, as an infant to a toddler, is what happens in that family and what happens among the people that that family chooses to interact with, maybe extended family or good friends, that type of thing, or neighbors. And so we have those already embedded in the way that we perceive things. So as we grow, and you and I have had this dialogue before, suddenly you become aware of the outside world and that not everybody does the same thing at the same time, about the same thing, and the rituals are different, the language is different, the belief systems are different. I mean, everything's different. And it's one of those moments that you may be able to look back on and say, I remember exactly where I was, what I was doing, and what happened when I had this big aha about not everybody lives their life the same way as my family did. And that is that first wakening up. That is that first awakening where our eyes are open. Maya is drawn back just enough to give us a little taste so we're not overwhelmed. The one thing that you did mention is about how we can intellectually really come to terms with this and even bring it into our heart and feel the compassion and being very sensitive about it. There's another aspect to this that shows up that most of the time we're not aware of. But someone with a different perspective or different cultural, historical background immediately recognizes it. And they were at one time called microaggressions. And so those can be intentional or they can be completely innocent, where because of what you grew up with and the perspective and the belief system and all of that, it's in place, certain things come out of your mouth or certain actions, body language happens, and you're not even aware of it. And even though you intellectually and in your heart have that open space and deep compassion and understanding, and you try very hard to be with that program, so to speak, I mean, authentically be it, certain things give it away. You know, they're called tells. You know, there's a
Mm.
tell or a clue that comes up. And then maybe you're aware of it, maybe you aren't. But if someone makes you aware of it, that gives you the opportunity to again use some insight and really take a good hard look at just how deeply have you made, not just you, but all of us have made the adjustments, made the intellectual and the heart adjustments to be truly um, able to encompass others in the way and who they are on earth.
I notice in today's culture, especially US culture, but I know that this is universal. But I think that we're seeing it, so the light is shining on us right now,
It
here
is, yes.
especially,
Pretty
in our
bright too, isn't it?
collective karma,
Hmm.
what we're going through collectively, our collective karma clearing. And something I notice is, we know that we're kind of at a divide here into two major groups, and I just can't help but notice that on one side, there's just almost a refusal to accept another's perspective or treat it as real, as a reality, treat it as something to be understood, respected, honored. And there, I notice a real lack of gratitude. There's a desire for a lot. We all, I think, there's a lot of talk of, hey, we all want the same things. Let's come together and on the things that we, unify on the things that we want. We all want a better life, right? Do we all deserve a living wage? Absolutely. And there's too great of a disparity in the wage gap if we look at like the what is it, 600 and some percent as the wage gap between a CEO, an average CEO, and their lowest wage worker. Um, so and how many people who are on some sort of assistance are working full-time jobs without benefits,
Plural
you know,
jobs, yes.
right. Or piecing together a bunch of part-time jobs to try to make a living. So, do we all deserve a living wage? Do we all deserve to work, uh, honestly, I would say a 6-hour day, 4 days a week and make a living wage? Yes, I think that most people could come together on that. But what I find interesting is you see the division and the two types, the two major groups that we see in our culture today. And what the difference that I notice is that there's a side that wants that for all, and another side that is like, I deserve that, and this group is the reason I can't have that, or this group is the reason that is being taken away from me. And I really notice there's a noticeable lack of gratitude for the things that we do have,
Yeah.
the abundance that because we are privileged to even live in the United States of America, which has historically been one of the richest countries in the world. We're looking at material wealth, but it's not just about material wealth. It's about, it's not just our gross domestic product, it's our gross domestic happiness. And what I notice is we're lacking in joy. We're not really lacking. And, we all have access to running water, hot water. You can turn on your stove and make a meal. And there are so many places in the world where you can't just walk into your bathroom and turn on the shower at any time of day and have a hot shower, or, run down the street to the grocery store and bring home healthy food. There's such we have so much that we have access to that maybe we haven't felt the sense of gratitude. I don't We want to use this word, should have, for just what we have access to on our day to day.
Yeah, you mentioned the disparities, and there are quite a few, and they're very extreme. Um, and the interesting thing is that the um, the material focus
Mhm.
that some countries, we could put the U.S. in there, have really do make that obvious globally. Not to say, though, that happiness really um, is dependent on material possessions or comfort. The happiness scale is something that, when it's taken away from whether you have a particular
Mhm.
thing, one of those material things, or not, what's the scale of happiness? And there's lots of studies that are done and still being done, and I know there's one that Harvard's been doing for a long, long time that takes a look at different socioeconomic categories and the happiness involved in living at those in those different categories. And so that you can find that online. You can go out and search for it. And spiritually, happiness is a big topic. Spiritually, happiness is um, considered to be something that we seek, right? And it is related to santosha, or contentment. So, where do we find happiness? And when we think about some of the happiest, I think Scandinavia is pretty far up there on the list. Do you know anything about that?
Well, I noticed that the countries that have the highest levels of gross domestic happiness are
Hmm.
those that have access to social programs that are focused on people over product.
Yeah, yeah.
And
Okay.
so yeah, exactly what you were saying. That was exactly my point, that for being one of the richest countries in the world, we're really lacking in the joy factor, it seems. So it's how can we, again, to me, that comes back to that focusing on gratitude, which I think we can look around at the things that are happening in the world today and be like, well, what is there to be grateful for? Look at all this that's happening. All of these horrific things are, things are just burning to the ground. The world's on fire. What is there to be grateful for?
Right.
Well, let's refocus And what is there to be grateful for? When you bring your focus back to gratitude, it might not be about the things that you have or the things that are going on out in the world, but what are those things? I've got my cozy home with my cat sleeping in her little, warm kitty bed, and my community where I can sit with once a week or more and take a real deep exhale and just feel that sense of connection and belonging and how I can carry that into my community at large. It might just be, the freedom that I have to take a full day out of my weekend and say, I don't need to, be busy and productive. I can just take a moment of peace for myself. So, how can we get that back, right? How can we reclaim our joy? And I think that's through a practice of gratitude.
The power of gratitude, reclaiming that power. And as you were speaking, I was thinking that of the individuals who uh, are going through some major transformation right now, where things may not be as cozy as they were. They may be having anxiety about their finances. They may be having anxiety about having a place to live, or maybe they don't have a place to live. And so when we think about where is that bottom line, where can people come to a sense of gratitude without a sense of bitterness or feeling victimized? And I will just have to say that in today's times, there are plenty of people that uh, easily can be in those categories for obvious reasons based on what's going on in their lives. But finding something as simple as it can be, because gratitude has an energy that, when it's experienced and when it starts to emerge from the body, brings an energy back to us. So if the material things are at risk right now, where do we find that gratitude? Because that gratitude, when we feel it authentically, creates an energy that then emerges from us. A lot like uh, we talk about, I think, in another episode, where we may have gone into the grocery store and we can tell when someone's angry because their energy is really vibrant and chaotic. Gratitude has that different energy than that. And what we send out is what we receive. So some would say, with gratitude, even if you can, donate, be charitable, create the action that you would like to have returned to you. Of course,
Mm.
you have to release the intention of an intended result, because it is a mirror situation and our intention needs to be of authentic giving. But when you do, you may be surprised what comes back.
What comes back, and to do it with the right heart, right? Not a heart of resentment. Don't go out there and give if it's if you're feeling resentful about it. Maybe we don't all have an abundance of financial resources. Maybe we have a little bit more time that we can give. Maybe we have an abundance of knowledge in an area, or an abundance of compassion that we can provide to others. So it doesn't just have to be through money
Yes.
and or financial resources. And some people don't have a lot of time abundance, but maybe you can provide in another way.
Hmm. Yeah.
But it's that question, how can I feel? How can I start? How can I trigger this feeling of gratitude? And it made me think of when you mentioned the grocery store. I was out getting some groceries not too long ago, and this scene I saw before me really struck me. because there was a little family, a mother, and I think there were three boys, and each boy had a bag of groceries in each hand. And two of them were just kind of slugging along, you could probably feel, I had to come to the store with mom. I'd rather be playing my video game or doing whatever it is. And that little boy who was walking ahead of everybody else, I'm going to get a little bit choked up here because I could just feel it. And his face was turned toward the sun. And he was just walking with this smile on his face and feeling the sun on his face. And that was just a picture of it's not what you're doing, it's how you experience it.
Mm-hmm.
It just chokes me up a little bit because it could just feel his little soul
Mm-hmm.
and how he was experiencing that moment.
Radiating the energies of gratitude just to be alive and have the sun on his face.
It
Beautiful.
was such a lesson. So if you're ever feeling in that moment of, what do I have to be grateful for? I'm sick of what life is handing to me. Just take a moment, observe what's happening around you, and you might, that you never know what might spark that feeling or that sense of gratitude that you can find again because we lose it. It's easy to lose.
It is.
Um, when we're caught up in the day to day. So it's out there. It's accessible if we can just take a moment and observe and allow, maybe even ask for opportunities. Show me how, ask the universe how can you show me something to be grateful for today?
Yes. And it might be as simple as turning your face to the sun, watching the clouds, taking a moment to breathe into the air uh, and experience nature. A lot to be grateful for there when we start thinking about Earth and the cycles of nature.
Yeah. So it doesn't always, it's not easy to tap into, or to, it maybe feels like it's easier to lose that sense than to come back into it. Um, and it's not always, the gratitude journal, but it helps. I think
Mhm.
that's kind of like getting those wheels turning again. And we think, okay, what are three things I'm grateful for today? And I'm writing, grateful for my hot bath. It's like you're just going through
Right.
the motions. It's like, oh, okay, if I have to do this. Remember, sitting around the Thanksgiving table growing up. Um, and we'd have to go around the table and say one thing you're grateful for. And it's like, oh, what am I going to say? But that practice does sometimes, we get into it and it's like, oh, yeah, you know what? I'm really glad that this happened today. Or I'm really grateful that I have this friend that I could text and just lean on for a little bit when I was having a rough time. Or I'm
Mhm.
really grateful that this friend texted me and shared something that they're having a hard time with. So whatever it is, you know, it's that practice that it's a practice. We have to keep keep in it.
Everything's a practice. We're here to practice living
Yeah.
in so many different ways. So, well, thank you everyone for uh, being with us on this holiday weekend. And we hope you comment, share, maybe mention your journey with gratitude. How's it going or not going? And
Yeah.
if
Share
anything,
that thing you're grateful for, like around the Thanksgiving table. You might feel a little silly typing it out. And I know we're grateful that, we have folks who tune in and share this journey with us and share in this part of our collective experience. So thank you for being here to all of our friends of the pod and to our listeners.
yes, please
And
like, share, and subscribe, ring the bell, and our email if you'd like to be a little more private with your comments and some of the things you would like to share. You can always email that to us. It's conscious eyes, EYES, all one word, 108 at gmail.com. So if the public comments aren't your gig, you can say what you want to say privately on the email. And we look
Or
forward.
if you'd like it to be, if you have a little more to say and you want that shared, you feel free to use that email that way as well.
Thank you. Yeah. Namaste.
Satnam.